Dark Star, nothing special. So I'm Brady.
I'm Dan.
I'm Andy.
And this is a Nothing Special on Dark Star. Because of the Dark Star stereo reverb that we just put out.
I wanted to see what you thought of this.
So it seemed like a good time for us to talk about what is Dark Star? Like, where did it come from? What is it now? What was it? What do we like about it? Is it actually special? So we put out the Dark Star in, let me put that under the thing. We put out the first Dark Star in 2015 at the end of the year. And then in those, I think an important thing to note is in those early days, we worked with Matt Farrow from, at the time, Disaster Area Designs. And then later he would start Alexander. But Matt was like such a huge help in getting Old Blood going. I had worked with him at Walrus on the Descent, which was like the first digital pedal we were doing there, and I didn't stay around to see that project through to the end, but that was how I knew Matt, and that was how working with him on that was enjoyable. And
I didn't know till much later that he was the one who originally designed it. And it's just and I feel like I will constantly be hearing about Matt. Oh, he was helped with blah, blah, blah. I'm like, damn, he's just everywhere. So shouts out Matt.
Yeah, a wizard with the FV1 chip.
Yeah, really, really is. And MIDI and many, many things. So yeah, those early pedals, he was a big help, and I was looking. We were going back and forth on what that original idea was, and it was meant to be a pad generator reverb, and what I really wanted was a bell-like sound. So I wanted like a the key the 9 pedals from Electro-Harmonix. I think I referenced one of those. I wanted like a bell. I wanted this to make a bell or like a steel drum sound. And then just have this long sustaining reverb. So almost just like a keyboard or something,
Yeah. Was there Space Station inspiration on this as well? Or
Probably.
I know that was a sort of out there pedal, but
yeah, because Space Station was on Sunlight too. We're digging into that more when we were trying to come up with sounds for that. So, I think I was just mixing and matching a lot of pedals and at the time, and then also wanting drone sustained type of things going on. Which it kind of became the focus of Dark Star at that time, right? With the hold switch. Because at first, the hold switch only went on there because we had it in the procession first. Come on, Bruce.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy.
But yeah, it was like you guys ended up moving away from the like bell-like sound, but kept the like stretchy, long trail, droney thing. And that kind of became core to what Dark Star was and is.
Yeah. And that's how I like to use it still. Like as something as a mood maker that you then work around. And so that's what I was going for. In 2015, I don't know what else was out that was really like that at the time. That kind of became almost an instrument
Yeah.
or sound in and of itself.
Yeah.
Well, like what I said with the procession, when I got it, I discovered the same thing that ultimately the Dark Star has, which is that softness of the attack. And it's not like it's a
Come on, Bruce.
reverb that's not working, but it's not doing the job of a normal reverb where it's like, just give me space around what I'm playing. It's giving you another sound along with it.
Yeah.
The
Bruce.
pad. So the procession was the first reverb truly ever for me that I felt the way you're talking about it, you know? And then when this came out, it's like, the effects that are additional to it were more for my taste than the procession was, as much as I still do love the procession.
Yeah.
The pitch stuff and the delay are my favorite modes, but honestly, there's a lot of times I've just used it in pitch mode without messing with the pitch at all, just kind of the core sound of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pitch mode was always my go-to as well. Like
Yeah.
the detuning or pitch, like doing like a fifth and an octave. That dual pitch thing that wasn't a shimmer reverb, I think is really key to like.
Yes.
It's octaving but not shimmering. So
It's
felt
funny
different
because
in that
now
way.
But in 2024
later
it
I made sure
can.
that it could shimmer because we can get into that. But
You think it does, huh? I mean, I guess it does.
We know it does.
I don't. Okay.
you don't force it to, but it can if it wants to. That's
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's something that was interesting too about it. You had that pitch control, and Shimmer was out there as an effect. It had been for a long time.
Which, to be clear, Shimmer to me is a regenerating pitch. So if it goes an octave up, it then keeps going another octave up and up and up.
Yeah.
Whereas what Dark Star is doing is just a consistent octave up or down or wherever in that range.
Yeah. So we have the multiply down. So you can hear that octave up. That's like classic Dark Star where it's just holding in an octave. But if we start feeding that octave back in,
Yep.
it's a grimy shimmer because it's Dark Star. So it still is.
Well,
It doesn't
yeah.
sound like a clean
Yeah.
I
shimmer
just
reverb, but you hear how
it's
those
still-
octaves
I love
filter.
that you're not hearing the discrete, like, +1, +2, +3. Like, it's just kind of, it's the
Yeah.
evolving pad thing. It's doing it. And the fact that you added,
Man,
The-
it still sounds different than a Shimmer to me.
well, yeah,
Because it is harsher. It's not just the Shimmer reverb.
the regenerating part is what makes it Shimmer to me. The way we're doing it is more interesting to me than others, which is good.
It's a shimmer, but
then
it's okay.
I was gonna say, I don't normally like Shimmer sounds, but I do like this one, and I like it more especially because you can tame it. You could roll off all the high end
Come on, Bruce.
and get some
really-
interesting resonant sounds like that.
This is all really freaking you out, huh? Just looking at me, panic in her eyes.
I guess, should we talk about like it's like we're already onto the new version, but
Yeah.
that original one, I know part of its story is that it really took off. Like I feel like that was a busy holiday season because Dark Star was I won't say unexpected hit. You should always expect that people will like the pedal that you're putting out, but it felt like a new thing for Old Blood. Like there was a sense of expansion from it.
I think so, yeah. Because it was, back then we were still 2015, maybe the end. So we'd been around a year and a half, maybe, and had put out 5 pedals. And so you can kind of deduce that the impact of each release didn't have to be like crazy monumental, because each new release a year and a half in still felt monumental. Even if it was like, oh yeah, we 30 people were interested in this thing in this first week or something. You're still like kind of climbing. You're still trying to tell people, which we still have to do that. They're still trying to, but still trying to get people to know anything about Old Blood back then. So to have something
30 is an infinity percentage increase from 0.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. That's huge numbers.
And then I think that, this did way better than anything we had put out before. So yeah, Dark Star kind of like was the first real explosion that we had.
Yeah.
And it weirdly, like, it didn't slow down is the thing. Other pedals, you release them, and like a lot of products, people are excited initially about it. So that's kind of the biggest exposure you'll get is within that first month or so of a release. And Dark Star was able to keep climbing and keep gaining notoriety.
Yeah. It was like a cult hit in a way, but that just kept, people would just stumble on it or have someone show it to them, and it occupied just a very unique space. I know one of the ways you and many other people would use it is as a full wet, which for a reverb pedal, normally you would want to blend in some dry.
Well, it kind of defeats the purpose a lot of times when you do that.
But that,
that sound.
And then long decay, yeah.
Yeah. Get some decay to it going. And just the way it bloomed.
Yeah. Yeah, take the pitching out too.
Yeah.
Just give us a clean.
A really important thing about Dark Star is, and part of what makes it probably a big part of its success, substantial, is the artwork and the way that it created a character. It created a personality that matched the sound. And so John's artwork, but on the V1, and probably not on that V2, but on the V1, we were still screen printing in-house. And so our process was like out in the garage. Dan, you did it for a while. I did it a little bit. Seth did it. And then Eli did it. Matt did it. We're screening things by hand and then putting them on an oven rack, which is just an oven that we had gotten from Goodwill, like a kitchen oven. And then baking probably like 12 at a time or something.
Something like that, yeah.
However many you could fit on the rack without them touching. And so by
How long
baking...
does one batch bake for?
Do you remember? It had to be between 15 and 20 minutes, I would think.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Because you could burn them. And you could either heat them up too much to the point that the powder was affected, or the ink wouldn't set if you didn't cook it long enough at the right heat. So
there would be batches where you would think it was set and then it would dry and it would
still be tacky,
chip off, or still be a little tackier. And so it was a tough balance to strike. Just another very inexact part of the process.
I would assume dependent on the weather too. Like every day you come in, it's not going to be consistent.
Yeah, it was in the garage of the shop, so it would be very hot in the summer, very cold in the winter. Yeah. So you could close the door and turn on heaters and stuff, but it would still, ambient temperature would fluctuate. And made the ink act differently. That was always interesting. The ink would be really gummy on a cold day,
And back then too, we could since we're doing each one, it was easier to screen print a batch of a different color in a unique way, and you'd kind of come out with one of one versions of something.
Yeah.
Especially if you were mixing different inks.
There was one custom run where it was like 50 one-of-one pedals.
Yeah.
They're just like different
kept
color
adding
combos.
ink. Yeah.
yeah.
And stuff like that was fun, but you can see on the V1, like the detail is
It's
less
like
sharp overall.
kind of raised in a way. There's like this little bit of the art that is missing, probably because the screen was gummed up.
Yeah. So you would start out as you were doing them, it would be clean, and then the more that you did, the lines would get thicker and thicker and thicker and kind of bleed together. But so you take that to V2. I believe we're doing UV printing by that point. Maybe not at the beginning of V2, but
Yeah.
by the time this one was made.
You got the indents on the control on V2, right?
That's correct,
Yeah, I think that was around that time. And we did some, I think around, maybe it was a little after V2, because the V2 basically added expression and soft touch switching to everything.
Yeah.
So it just, and that we did that across the whole pedal line, just because, I don't know, people asked for that kind of stuff, and it gave it a little extra.
You know, we're a young company, novices with the name Old Blood, trying to
Fake it till you make it.
yeah, kind of, I guess, but trying to figure it out. So
You're learning.
yeah,
How about that?
yeah,
Learning in public is always
yeah. I mean, we always knew that. Like, we could get excited about something, but also you know that it's not going to be. You may figure out something better for the exact same effect or pedal and we do that over and over again. But I think that's true in a lot of industries and a lot of products, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the same TV that you bought initially.
Yeah.
In your life.
V2, nobody has those anymore.
10 years ago,
Well,
a
I
TV
mean,
falling
some of
over
it-
would
some of
kill
us
you.
do.
Nowadays, you wouldn't even notice.
Yeah. So we probably started thinking about conceptualizing Darkstar V3 2019. Because we wanted to do a new version of it. We wanted to do something that had a lower noise floor and like a better processing, and you know, this has been bouncing around in different ways and for 5 years at least, and that's a good sound, man.
And there's always been, because it's like our most popular pedal, that means good things. That means a ton of people have it and love it. And that also means you hear a lot of criticism because there's so many more out there. So people are asking for trails. People are talking about the noise floor. People wish it was stereo. People wish you could MIDI control it. People wish expression wasn't limited to just these two knobs. People wish there were presets. These requests all start to stack up.
Yeah.
And I think when we were first thinking about the V3, we were looking at, clocking, filtering, maybe adding some more stuff, maybe presets, maybe trails. I can't remember what all we thought about adding, but it felt like it fell back into the background a bit over 2020, 2021.
Yeah, because it became a project that would require knowledge about more in-depth.
You'd outgrown the
processing power.
FE1.
Yeah,
I think it was starting to become clear that if to use the FE1 for it would still have inherent limitations that we just needed to figure out and overcome.
From 2019 to where we are now, there's like so many steps within the pedals that we've made that led us to the design for Darkstar and the way to appropriately recreate those sounds in a higher fidelity. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the different building blocks where I would identify like, okay, at some point I guess I need to learn about how MIDI works. At some point I need to learn about. And one of those things was like, using VCA, basically digitally controlled analog stuff, because it feels like if you can do MIDI, you better have MIDI control over the whole thing. And
or it would be the assumption from the user.
Well, if it's going to be as good as we want it to be, then we should do that. And you also want the dry signal to stay analog. Oh no, now we have to like control an analog signal digitally. So learning the hardware of that and everything was in a low noise way and all that. It took some work, but now it's like, you can MIDI control your mix. You can send MIDI messages to ramp the volume and just make it a tremolo pedal if you really wanted to. And I feel like this form of Darkstar has been like a 2-year process, the way I think of it. The Darkstar V3 has been kind of a 5-year thing, but in like October of 2022, I moved up to Michigan, and I remember when I got my kind of home office set up there, one of the first days in that week, I realized I didn't have a big project that I was working toward. We had some of the BL pedals that were ready to go, and I think I was working on triple ramper, but there wasn't a big thing I was tackling, and I thought, I guess I should probably finally actually figure out the stuff that will become Darkstar. And I basically just made a circuit board that was a development board, essentially. I tried to learn as much as I could about a big STM32 chip and a specific audio codec, and then I just put a bunch of toggles and knobs and stuff and hooked them all up together with a couple MIDI jacks as well, and was like, I'll use this to learn and implement and start to develop all this. And so that was October of 2022. And then we saw the shape of the pedal kind of change, and we came up with this enclosure design around it.
How early on was it that you decided to, or determined that you could do all modes at once, or that you at least wanted to do that?
That was pretty early, because I think I had that in that first prototype version. It basically, I thought, well, if Darkstar is when you look at the code, you can kind of see that there's a core reverb sound, and then you can crush it, you can add a delay on top of it, you can pitch shift it, but you can't do all of that at once. Right. And it felt like, well, I mean, if we're using all this more powerful stuff, you may as well just find a way to, by using knobs, create all the modes, instead of having a 3-way toggle where you pick one.
The pitch shifting has some teeth to it, kind of, which is, but that's also why I like the crush, because you can actually just okay, let's add more teeth to it. Instead of being run away, no, do more. I just think the pitch algorithm and the crush go really well together, and that's part of Darkstar. Yeah,
that was a big thing I wanted to do with the modeless thing. It's I want to hear those. Yeah. Well, I guess the crush already had one pitch shift, but I just wanted to hear 2.
Yep.
We knew it was coming, and we knew that was a really important thing to do. And so it was at the end of last year, right? We decided to discontinue Darkstar as it was.
A bold move.
Our bestseller.
Their bestseller? What are they thinking?
So that the market could kind of clean out and.
Well, and you weren't trying to trick anyone either. You were very open about the point.
Oh yeah. We did. We told people that we had a new one coming. We're working on it, but we also didn't want to, on Tuesday, sell somebody a Darkstar V2, and then on Wednesday, try and sell them a Darkstar V3, because that just sucks. That sucks to be that customer, right? Yeah. So we wanted some space there. So instead, what we did is tried to sell them the Darklight, which is so this came out in December. We're going to talk a little bit about Darklight, because it has it plays a big part in the Darkstar story. We are at the going into the end of 2023. We're working on getting Beam Splitter out and going. I believe it came out in October or September of last year, but we're working on that. And at some point we know, like, all right, Darkstar is kind of the next big thing that we need to get going. Well, let's reestablish connection with John Carling, who has done the artwork for Darkstar, did it for Sunlight.
More like John Artling.
I don't think he would like that, but
Okay.
but John Carling, he's based out
Art
of
Carling?
San Francisco, and amazing artist. We're talking to him. Blake and I are talking to him about doing the artwork for the new Darkstar, not totally knowing when it's going to come out, not totally knowing how it's going to take shape. And he pitches this idea.
And it wasn't an uncommon request for people to say, oh, I'd love a Darkstar and Sunlight together.
Yeah.
Because John also did the art for Sunlight.
And, you know, that's a thing that pedal companies do, too. Like, when we were at Walrus, we would do that with different requests. I think at that stage, it was more of a custom one-off thing. When John said that, we'd never really given it any time or any space in our development. We've never really thought it was a great idea. I say I never wanted to really do that. And then he pitched this, and talking to him, it made a lot of sense. The idea was there. And this was kind of late in 2023. Do you know when you started working on it?
It was September of 2023.
Okay. Yeah. September of 2023. And granted, it is taking two. So Darklight takes two designs, Darkstar, Sunlight, and adds additional functionality, and kind of like is the half step that we needed to take to get to the place that we wanted Darkstar to be. So we're introducing like stereo in a configuration. Now it's not just like true stereo, but
it's doing some fun routing stuff, kind of like what we had done with Float and things like that. Basically utilizing the fact that it's a Sunlight and a Darkstar together to do some parallel mono or stereo or series, just series mono and things like that. I feel like you guys were excited about the concept, but not wanting it to feel like we just crammed two pedals in a box. And I remember feeling that same way.
Which, to be fair, I think that would have been cool, and people would have liked that, because I like those two pedals, and you put them together, cool.
I think a lot of people would have liked it. I think you talked about how you were always reluctant to the idea, but then when you talked with John about it, it felt like it made sense. And I was also always reluctant to the idea, because you never want it to feel like, it's just two pedals in a box, you know. Even though a lot of people do love that, it's not something that you want to make and feel like it does. It feels like you should do some added value. And I remember thinking through, like, I think we just had a quick brainstorm of like, okay, what we could do is we could expand the expression control. We could have one shared hold switch, because you can't have two. There's just not space for 4-foot switches.
And the dry wet control versus a mix.
And the dry wet control instead of the mix. And then the spread control, I think, was an idea.
I don't think we knew how it was going to do. We thought it would do well, but we made 2,000 of them. In all honesty, we probably made like a little bit over that, 2015, 2020, something like that. Just from different units that we would send out and favors that we would do for people, whatever. And that plays into where Darkstar's at now.
And Darklight ended up selling out not long before Darkstar, before the new one came out, right? Like, it kind of worked out well. Where Darklight lived for that year between the discontinuation of the V2 and the release of the V3.
That is funny that it was so close, but it's not like we had to get to close to Darkstar release and be like, oh, we have
1,500.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened that way, which felt really nice.
Which is cool. And like, people still, it is its own thing, because you cannot do all in Darkstar, you cannot do all that Dark Light does, obviously.
There's
But
a whole
then
sunlight in there.
Darkstar does so much more than the Darkstar circuit within Darklight does. So yeah, it was like a little half step kind of in the process and progress here.
Is that the final hurrah on FV1? Is the Dark Light?
I guess so far. Yeah. The BL series was kind of, I think, conceived as like the final hurrah in a way. But then this obviously, I think because I didn't do anything new with the FE1, I never think of this as like another FE1 design because it was more about the control around it. But yeah, that'll probably be the last official new release using the FE1.
Yeah.
You never know, but I can't imagine the scenario where we do a new design with an FE1.
I mean, I don't think there's much going back at this point.
Listen to that.
Listen to that. Come on.
Listen to that low noise floor.
I do remember in the Slack because there was a version the prototype initially in this enclosure had a different knob layout, but it had all the functions. It had filter crush, everything. And then once I saw that it was just a mock-up that Blake did of the final layout, this one, and I knew that the pitch controls would be indented, but at that time filter and crush were not, and filter was just a low pass, and that's when, inspired by Chase Bliss, I'll just say that. They have a couple devices where the filter is, at noon, it's doing nothing. Go counterclockwise, you get low pass. Clockwise, you get a high pass filter. So I said, I think that would be a good addition, especially if you're pitching down. You might still want to have that character, but without all the heft of it.
Yeah.
And so then looking at the layout that Blake did, I was like, well, if the filter is a good idea, that makes 3 of the 4 top knobs indented. So like, why not just make the crush indented too? Like, what's something cool you could put on the other side? That was my one input that I feel like going for it. I'm like,
and I think you said because the crush is like, it's like sample rate reduction. It's a very digital aliasy type of distortion. And I think you were like, maybe like saturation or distortion or something.
Maybe something else. Yeah, I saw that.
And I thought, that sounds fun. So added some gentle soft clipping that can get into overdrive territory.
But I do just like that if you want the classic Darkstar, it's just the top knobs at noon.
Yeah. Maybe filter down a little bit. But.
Yeah, I don't think that is classic Darkstar with all of them.
It's my classic Darkstar.
Yeah. So it feels like Knobs at Noon is like the neutral voice of the modern Darkstar. Yeah.
But yeah, that core sound, which like if it didn't have this, I'd be like, this isn't a Darkstar.
Yeah, it had to stay true to the core of what Darkstar was without needing to exactly mimic every sound.
Can I tell you guys that on Darkstar V1, V2, whatever, I never really liked delay mode that much.
I feel like that's actually a funny thing where internally, I feel like in a meeting I may have even explicitly said, and none of us use delay mode except if we want it to be just like no pitch shift and no crush, but like we're interested in the other modes, right? Delay mode's not it, and I feel like we all said yes, and then we learned that some people like to use delay mode.
It never hit for me.
But the idea was like, in my head, the whole thing of delay was that it gives you closer access to the core voice. With an added delay that could self-oscillate way too easily. And so I thought, well, we'll do a nod to delay mode by adding a lag control that can, stretch out the initial attack time, which is basically just adding a delay to the reverb. And then we'll do that multiply control, which would be, rather than just pure feedback that oscillates within just the core reverb, it'll be an oscillator of the whole thing. So that's how you get those shimmer effects and everything
and those like falling pitches too. Which are fun.
So it's like this isn't delay mode, but don't you like it even more?
I like it better.
And yeah, it's oscillating. It's getting loud, but it's not gonna
ride that volume.
It's not gonna totally scream at us.
I mean, that's it, and it's cool noises you can make.
It's cool noises you can make.
I was gonna show also the decay knob. There are sounds in here that are very different from Darkstar.
Yeah.
Like you were talking earlier about this.
That's where I was going to go there. Yeah. No, not the fifth.
Or just
I don't never pitch it at all.
Okay, that's what it was. You can have this like one of the things about Darkstar is it's very long trail, but we wanted to also have a shorter reverb that could just be a little more normal. You could use it a lot more like always on. And so we just made it so that little bottom 10% of the decay knob just kind of took out most of the reverb stages. So it's a little roomy. It's still it's not the tiniest reverb, but it's nice. It's just a nice little reverb.
Much
and then you can,
is that
hit
all
that
mix all the way up too?
No.
Or where's that at?
Oh 50. No, if we hit
so do mix
all the way up.
So yeah, with that short like it that's a great sound.
Yeah,
you can play with that, explore with that.
And it'll be even shorter like this, right? Or
what did you just change?
Multiplied down.
Oh, I didn't realize multiply was still up. Yes, yeah, because you could use multiply to.
You gotta be careful, but
yeah, exactly. But yeah, and then you can also use it to basically create weird slapbacks. You have that lag control and a short reverb.
Which that lag with the plus fifths or some sort of different octave is very fun.
Okay, so
because they just kind of dance around you.
Yeah, that's cool.
You can almost get like a dotted eighth thing going.
Well, there's no better way to throw me off than to start adding in like fifths and stuff because I don't know what to go to next. Because it all sounds wrong to my brain.
I think you panic, and
I totally do. Yeah,
because if you're on fifths and you're in a key, there's only one note you like don't have, you can't, or you shouldn't hit.
And I'm gonna get it.
But you're gonna hit it once and then just no longer be in a key.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can do just the octave, and you know.
Yep. See. Yeah. That's old Darkstar couldn't do that.
Here's something the old Darkstar couldn't do. Ready? Play something. Okay, so we're holding that, and you're gonna play some more. Like reversing the hold, kind of.
Lets the signal in while you just
and then you feed it.
I think things like that are interesting because they show a very cool added feature that I forget is new.
Yeah.
Like, because hold used to just be a momentary hold switch. If you wanted to freeze the reverb, you pressed on it and you had to hold it down.
Yep.
And then when you let go, it would stop. But this one, because of that, it can be latching or momentary, and you can, reverse the momentary action of it. And I forget to even tell people, oh, we added that too.
Yeah. I mean,
you could like MIDI sequence some CC messages.
Oh.
That's kind of the whole thing.
For this one, for Darkstar stereo, we also changed up the enclosure style, and this is kind of like we did it for Partner. That was our introduction to it. This is how Old Blood pedals will look for future releases. The size may grow, it may shrink a little bit, I guess, the width
Yeah.
rather,
Yeah.
but not the overall
The
length.
depth. Yeah.
They'll look real nice when you put them next to each other
Yeah.
on a board and you use all the top jacks.
One of the
Yeah.
things I've appreciated about the Enclosure is that if you're looking at a pedal board from the top, you normally can't see the labels on the output jacks, or if they're on the top. But with this, you can see. It's like the perfect little angle where you can see
Oh yeah, it
like
makes
what's
it easier
happening on the back of the pedal without going like or ripping it off a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
I like it.
Anyways, new Enclosure, new print. That's pretty good. And then, okay. So let's touch on some settings, and then we can get on out of
can
this.
stop.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
To demonstrate the thing, which it was a big moment when I played the pedal for the first time, and you were like, "So, does it do the thing? Like, is it satisfactory for Darkstar?" And like, it does. So I'm going to roll off a little filter, roll up a decay, and this is it. Yeah, the full mix thing. So being able to like dynamically, it's like you're generating a pad and you're also making it dynamic with how hard you're plucking.
It's a
Love
good
it.
thing.
Real pretty.
Next.
All right, so I think for
Yeah, you're right.
mine, and I'll mention, because we hadn't mentioned it yet, the pitch knobs now snap to semitones past the detune, and that's partly because I always like doing fifths, and they can be tough to find. So
Yeah.
I basically just made it so they snap so that I could find a fifth more easily. But it also just helps you, instead of being like between a major third and a fourth, which is not where you want to be.
No,
you can easily
that can
snap
be a
between
bad
them.
one.
So I'm gonna find something like that.
Ooh. Each pitch interval has its own character, kind of going back to the way the FV1 did it. So it's like there's like a pulse or movement to it that changes based on what the actual interval is.
Is that that's all saturation from that? Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Great sound.
Real quick, the filter knob too, it's slightly resonant on the low pass, no resonance on the high pass side, because that would be annoying.
I didn't want it to spike.
Right, and then it goes all the way down to 0 on the low pass side, but not all the way up on the high pass side, because that would also suck. Yeah, you love the high pass.
Yeah, high pass was something that I wasn't convinced on, but I was
No,
like,
I
well,
like
we'll
it.
throw it in there, and then yeah, a lot of people really like it.
I mean, it's a very filter is a very utilitarian thing, but it's so helpful. It lets you use settings that I think wouldn't be usable otherwise. That's cool.
Yeah, I like some of these really sort of weak sounding. Let me try adding a little bit of this.
It's interesting because that sounds like a classic Darkstar, but you can't do that with the classic Darkstar.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
It's like the mirror image of a classic Darkstar.
Yeah, yeah.
And the relationship between the crush control and the filter control is just really nice.
You can use high pass to accentuate the aliasing instead of to tame it down.
Yeah, because that's what the filter turned up. But when can you drop it to noon? Like, that's still nice, but it's a different thing. I think overall, Darkstar stereo, reverb, Darkstar V3, whatever. It's everything we wanted it to be. Isn't the comprehensive
Wow.
Say you're wrong again, please.
You're wrong, Kyle.
We did it. We did Darkstar.